Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Minds. It's a podcast with Tyler Simmons, Jordan Brooks, and myself. It's a volleyball podcast about a lot of different things, our stories, volleyball. Get everybody to introduce themselves. First, we'll start with my man Tyler here.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Tyler Simmons. I've been playing volleyball since grade 7. I've always been around the game. My oldest brother played, and my other brother played. My mom played volleyball, and all of her siblings, so volleyball goes way back in my family. I played at Auburn, if you guys know where that is. It's in Cole Harbour. I come from one of the largest all-black communities in Canada, so there's not too many people who play volleyball right now. From there, I think I'm one of the last people, honestly, one of the last males to play volleyball from my community. I played provincial team back then, and now I just do some coaching.
Okay. Yeah, he also coaches 18U Sonics. Tyler was a G back in the day, super high ceiling, played on a lot of good teams. But yeah, had a lot of potential. We've been friends for I'd say 10 years at least now.
Way more than that. It was
10
when we graduated.
Yeah. Christ, we've been friends for about 15 years now.
I can add on that too. I remember the first time I ever saw Tyler play, and it was in junior high. And I think we probably would have met each other at some point before then. But that Graham Creighton team he played on, they were
good.
We were all that.
That was a good junior high team.
They were a solid team, with a very good coach, who ran a good program too. So it's really a shame because it seems like since he left, that kind of was the end of that program. But who knows? Yeah, exactly.
When I played high school, I was the only person on my team who played club volleyball. So every other team, you had a bunch of players that had club volleyball players, but I was the only one who played. Everyone else was like baseball players, hockey players. And when you play against my team, it's pretty much you're playing against me.
Yeah, when I find in boys that tends to be something that is a big issue. And then you get some schools where they actually do take volleyball pretty seriously, like where you went, Robbie. And those are the schools that tend to have the success. It's pretty hard to get the boys on board, but I'm sure we'll probably touch on that a little bit later on with something else we're going to discuss. So, Robbie, you want to introduce yourself?
Speaking of that place, I went to CEC. It was only for 1 year, but I'm from Stewiacke. A few volleyball players. Played Tide volleyball for a bit, all the way through. Played 1 year Sonics with Brooks here. Played provincial team, but volleyball. There was a lot of people, and like growing up in that Tide club, it was 14U, 16U, 18U. They'd all practice together, so you'd be exposed to like these players who you think are gods, and you know what, most of them were. And you just see what high level is. I'm the only one in my family that plays volleyball. I got cut from basketball in grade 7, and I was like, man, I'll try volleyball, man. A lot of girls are playing volleyball.
Best decision you could have made.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, and then grade 7, we won our first tournament ever. So I'm like, oh, volleyball's all right. So so I played at UNB SJ for a year. Now I'm coached with these three, or us three coached CPA, Sonics, and now I coach at Mount Allison. Coached provincial team for New Brunswick, kind of giving back in a coaching way. When I was 16, my coach told me, yeah, you'll coach one day. I just thought I didn't have a high ceiling and, wasn't the most athletic, but controlled the game and put my thumbprint on a game from, under the net. So, I told him that actually this year. That what he said about how I remembered that. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know. That's why. And, he was a little bit psycho. So was I. So,
Still are.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Going back to what we were talking about just with you, Robbie, I remember when we would have met each other through sport, probably would have been in 16U playing against each other, I imagine. Wouldn't it have been?
Yeah,
and Tyler, you would have played Metro that year?
Metro.
That was when Churro hosted provincials. And I can tell you right now, you definitely weren't someone who was very fun to play against. Not one bit.
No, great teammates, shithead to play against. I'm even like that now.
Yeah. You had the Draymond Green. Yeah, exactly. That Brad Marchand.
I'd like a better comparison than Draymond. No, yeah, it's it's good to have me on your side for some of the times, but yeah, I'm a lot, but shitty to play against me. That's why I can't play co-ed or anything like that. I only got one speed, and it's man, it's trash talking and everything. And if you're out against like old ladies or I don't have the abilities I used to have, the foot speed slowed down, my non-vertical decreased even more. So it's not always fun to play against me, but.
No, but it's great to have someone like that on your team. And I think also as a coach, you do a good job at, instilling some of that in your players, not necessarily exactly what you would have said back in your heyday, but, just teaching them how to play with their minds,
Oh, for sure. That's what volleyball is. It's a mind game, and I learned
90%.
Oh, it's all mental, right? And
so
that's one thing that
really
three of us, all of our teams kind of identify as the bad guys. Yeah. And we like that role because we like having chips on our shoulder, and that's the joys of having all three of us as like coaches, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I was chatting with Maggie about that today, just talking about how I think that's one thing we bring to the table that we do a really good job with. So I agree.
Oh, 100%. Next up, we'll get you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, how you started volleyball.
Brief. Try and keep it brief because I know how I get.
Yeah, we'll be cutting you off.
Well,
we'll be cutting you off.
We're just like shepherd dogs herding you.
Volleyball for me. I was thinking about actually through this quarantine. I've had a lot of time to think about kind of my career and how things got started. And I honestly, with as a lot of people know, is super involved. He's coached, and he was doing that before Justin and I were even born.
Yeah.
So my parents were going to split up, or I was going to have to go to a bunch of volleyball with him and Justin too, if she wasn't going to look after us all. And it turned into something that I liked. I just loved going on the trips and, that tournament experience that we all loved as players and that our players love. I kind of liked that part. Then, of course, I didn't think it was cool to be the volleyball guy, so I tried to pursue a career in basketball. But when you're trying to play against athletes like we've got in Nova Scotia on the basketball court, chances are it's not really going to work for you. So really, I'd say the big thing that got me into volleyball was more that, I liked the girls was definitely a big thing. I'm not going to lie to you, and I think the three of us probably can all agree on. Yeah, and just that, I kind of noticed that I had a better shot at going somewhere with that rather than trying to compete with the thousands of incredible athletes that are playing basketball in Nova Scotia. So, and really the coaching thing just kind of fell into place. I'm sure we'll get into that at some point, how we all kind of got started with coaching. But, I didn't even really think that was something that I would consider not doing. It just kind of and then, our friendship, the three of us, really, I'm thankful for it because that's brought us together. So, and plenty of other things too.
Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
So that's kind of how things got started for me. And, I played, my dad started up a boys club, and he kind of put that time in that a lot of people don't want to, in trying to recruit guys and trying to turn them over to volleyball. He was willing to put that time in, and he did it because, Justin and I were one grade apart, so he knew if he got a core group with us that we could probably play together for our whole careers, and we did. Sonics, a lot of people probably don't know that we actually had boys teams. Like, I bet you if we talked to some of our girls, they'd have no idea that even existed, right? So Sonics kind of came and went, just came and went.
Yeah, and Derek's kind of a big reason because he started that core group of kids in junior high. The success of Sackville High. Well, you guys won all those banners now. Some of the key players were to those Sonics teams, and then you get other athletes to switch over, like the Todds and the Robbies, and
I think Pete, our high school coach, I definitely didn't give him the credit when I was a little younger, but he did a really good job at making athletes want to play. Like, we get guys like Devo, who Devo was a football player, football, basketball player, but Pete had him convinced to come over and play volleyball. And I think, Pete, even you look like that was Pete that really gave him that shot. And Dad worked, you know what I mean? Like, they were a good team in a sense. Like, Pete really, he did a good job at keeping those Todd Williamses and those guys that weren't really volleyball guys, but still had them loving it for those couple of months. Yeah. And I think the Sonics program, what that did was that for the guys who really cared about it, and that was their main thing, it gave us a place like, Drew played with Todd and all them, but then he had Sonics or, a club team to fall back on once that high school season was done. And then the other athletes did their thing and came together every high school season. So, yeah, it was definitely a combination for sure. Pete did a really good job at keeping those athletes, in at least still coming out for volleyball, whether it was their main thing or not.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason why, like, I know I've had people ask me, I know people have asked us why we coach girls and not guys, because you get the top level athletes for girls.
Well, the difference is for female tryouts, you have 60 girls come out to tryouts. For guys, you'd have 10, which isn't even enough for a team. Yeah. You never know if you're going to have a team.
But if you think about sports, I know this is only speaking in, like, Nova Scotia, a bit of New Brunswick, but the guys that are super athletics has all potential. They play football, basketball. Yeah. Where girls, if you're super athletic and want to go places, it's probably going to be volleyball, or that'll probably be one of your top two rather than your bottom three.
Well, I think the main reason for that is for, like, in male sports, a guy who thinks he's a basketball player thinks he's a basketball player when he's 14.
Yeah.
Same thing with a hockey player, a football player. They're young. They start to specialize young. So by the time they hit, let's say, junior high, it's not time to try out on a new team or a new sport. You already know that you are a basketball player.
They go with what's comfortable.
So the top athletes for males are already taken by then.
Yeah, that's my. Tyler also forgot to mention when talking about himself, he coaches at FSA, which is a soccer academy. So Tyler's always coaching. Even like when we scrimmage or do drills, he'll be like, "Oh, I'll do this," and it's like, "Yeah, man, I know. I'm just trying my best." So Tyler's always in coach mode, and he coaches high level soccer, high level volleyball. So he knows a lot about a lot of sports.
Second nature. Second nature to
Oh, for sure.
Like walking.
Honestly, if you want to talk to me more, the best time to talk to is when I'm coaching. Yeah. I talk more when I coach than I do when I'm actually hanging out. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, just gonna take a break from all the feedback given. I feel you. Sometimes it's nice to just sit back. Another thing I'd add on the boys, I know when I first graduated, I had thought about maybe helping. Tim was at Sackville High by then, he'd taken over, and I remember I couldn't make the first tryout because of work, but he told me he had 6 guys at the tryout, and then he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to go into the school tomorrow and roam the hallways and try and recruit some guys." And that was a big thing for me with the coaching girls. I'm not at the point in my life where I'm that much effort into just getting people there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas with girls, you'll get the bodies at most places. Really, the issue on the girls' side is finding the coaches for some of the schools. You know what I mean?
Because there's so many
every year there's exactly. Whereas with boys, it's hard to get the AFL. I think that's a big thing. That would definitely be one of my biggest things is just the lack of commitment that you'll get from the boys. But it's hard to convince them. It was hard to convince me to not care more about basketball.
When I was in junior high, my grade 9 team, we almost didn't have a team because there wasn't enough guys. I literally grabbed my best friends since elementary school and be like, "You're playing volleyball with me. We need players." Like, they are not volleyball players, but we wouldn't have had a team if I didn't force my friends to play with me.
Yeah.
Do you guys
and you never see that on the girl.
One thing that's kind of different nowadays, like when we were growing up, certain tournaments would be, they'd have girls' courts on one side of the gym and guys' courts on the other. So, when you're in between games, you could watch the other games. You could like see your friends and stuff like that. And that, I know that has a draw. I know my cousins used to be like, "Oh man, why are you playing volleyball? That's a sissy sport." But when it came out later, they're like, "Oh, how do you know her? Can I get her number? Introduce me." And it's just, that was one of.
Every guy volleyball player likes to be warming up, bouncing the ball in warm-ups while there's girls watching them. I don't care how good or how bad you are. You love warm-up because you know that the girls will be watching.
I probably never bounced the ball, but
I ain't bounced the ball. But I'll talk shit in warm-up.
I think one thing one thing that's changed from when we played is I don't find there's as much of a connection between guys volleyball and girls volleyball, and I almost think that that's probably what's hurting on the guys side is that you're more likely the guys out if they go to a tournament and there's a ton of girls around, or I just look at if you look at the Dow tournament that we brought CTA to, that was really the only event all year where you have that type of an atmosphere. That, and then I guess provincial team and provincial. That's it. There wasn't a whole lot of that intermingling. Even in clubs, you'll get clubs. You've got a club, but their guys' side is one thing and their girls' side is the other. There's no I don't find you see very much, interaction between and even other teams. I think that's a big thing that's the difference from when we were playing.
Well, would you say boys volleyball is better now or then? Hello?
I think you go first, Todd. You go first, Todd.
Okay, well, I think that
currently the boys are more technical than what we were back then, but I think we are more physical, honestly.
I know me personally, I would be able to play in this. I'd be pretty good if I played in this this era right now.
Yeah.
Because athletically, I'd be up there with some of the top players, but technically, it feels like they've played higher level volleyball for longer than what I had.
I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
yeah.
I think that's a really good point. Robbie, what do you think? I'll go last on that so I don't repeat something.
I think some of the coaches who didn't really know what they were doing get kind of weaned out. So people are learning more technical stuff. And one thing is people are playing in a bunch of different clubs for a bunch of different coaches. So they'll learn different things from each other and other coaches, which I think is good, but it kind of has an effect and doesn't water down the teams, but it makes it everybody's friends.
Less competition.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to get to that point later.
Yeah, everybody's friends and it's cool to be friends, but you still should want to beat them. I want to beat my friends more than anything.
Yeah.
But so I think a lot of different coaches are teaching some good stuff.
Yeah.
Some coaches are teaching some stuff that, teach their own. But I think the high level, they play it at an earlier age. But I enjoy watching. I think girls volleyball has really evolved from what it was. And that's, again, with the coaches bringing in systems, seeing stuff, and introducing kids to a university level, but at a 17U, 18U, maybe even a 16U, and taking those weeks of stuff's not going well, and just for the higher level and the better systems.
Yeah. One thing I find is I think that in our generation, which is, you say, within the last 10, 15 years ago, there were more good teams. Yeah. It's not to say that the ball, I'm not saying those teams would beat the good teams of today, but you would see, on the guys' side, you'd see 6 to 8 teams, and majority of them could compete. Whereas now, I think it's kind of narrowed down to people are starting to, with people joining each other's teams, there's less good teams, but because you're playing with better players and it's less spread, they're able to kind of get better together and play hockey. I feel like that might be part of it. They're joining other good players, so the level's going up. And as an individual, as an athlete, that's good for you. like
Not good
there's
for the
not as like no, like I mean, you look at like when we used to go into you wouldn't be able to pick. There'd be 6 teams that could potentially go in and win it, whereas now you'll be lucky to find 2. You know what I mean?
Think about my Lakers team that I played for. We were stacked. Like we had all provincial players. There's only one player on our team that wasn't provincial, and 2 of us that didn't go to the NTCC tournament. Like our team was stacked, and we came third in provincials, and not like we came third. It was a big upset. Like the other teams were just as good. The other teams
they were good.
Yeah. The other teams were just as good as us.
Never see that. You'd never see that now. Like I think boys like that's the one thing about boys that it's a shame is that I don't know when that happened or why it started to happen, but there's not even as many teams, but there's not as many good ones either.
Yeah, because that was the first year Charles didn't have a club team, so Dale went down and played with you guys. I went to Sonics, and then I think everyone else played 16U.
And then we got Drew too from Sonics.
Drew, because
majority.
Those top 3, I'll say 4 because we finished 4th, but those top 4 teams were solid teams, man, just packed with like provincial team athletes and people that wanted to win.
Well, I mean, you look at who we had. We had some good players, and we stood no chance of winning.
No.
You know what I mean? There was no way we were going to win, but we had to. You know what I mean? It was just.
Oh, you guys should play.
No way we could compete with those other. Yeah, but we were kind of 4th was almost like, you know, we were on the brink of doing worse than that, and we had a really talented team with
for sure.
full of guys committed to volleyball. You know what I mean?
I think that's part of the management side of that, though. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
And who was looking after it?
Yeah. No, that's true. That is true. Yeah. Like even when we're talking about comparing, generations, I think even on the girls' side, it's similar where there's not as many. Like when I was growing up and Dad was coaching, and Robbie, you probably remember this, Tyler, you too. Like there was like you had a really strong team in Cape Breton. Yarmouth would have a strong team. Truro, Valley, and there'd be 3 or 4 metro teams. There's your 8 to 10 teams that are all could win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even on the girls' end, you don't see that quite as much. But it's different. But then at the same time, that level of ball that these teams are playing is definitely high. Like they're being coached by solid coaches. They're practicing with solid everyone in practice is at that level and can play at that level. So I guess there's ups and downs to it, I guess. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on it. I liked having 8 teams that could beat you any given day. I thought that was a good thing.
I'm going to go into a little tangent about this. I think that me personally as a coach and the way that I coach, if I have a player for 2 years, I can develop them the best I possibly can. Right? So, yes, I agree that players should be able to go to wherever they want. But at some point, it's like, I have more things that I need to teach you, and 4 months isn't enough for me to teach you everything that needs to be taught. Right? And you see it now in Nova Scotia. There's a lot of kids that are switching back and forth, which is their right, and I don't feel like they should be allowed to do it. But
doing what's best for them. Yeah.
Yeah, as a coach, let's say I'm working with one of my hitters, and I work with her footwork for those 4 months to get it down. I wouldn't need 4 months, but then the next year it's okay, I need to work on her arm swing now, but she's no longer with me, and she's moved on to a coach who's now teaching her footwork all over again in a different way with a different touch to it. Where I know when I was younger, I played at the club that I played at, which was Metro, and it switched to Lakers, and it changed name. It's now Tigers, but I developed through coaches, and not even so much the coaches, the same players. I've developed with the same players for a while, where it's it's not, if you're always switching teams, you're switching and learning different things, and you might not develop everything fully.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah,
in
it does.
soccer, that's
You
how.
don't even have the time to
Yeah.
get that perfected before you're learning something new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
That's
still
a
think
really
that
good point.
I still
Yeah,
think
it
that
is.
players should be allowed to move and go wherever they want. I just think for development wise, you want to stay like if you're still learning with the same players, you guys are learning on the same curve. And if you switch to a different, like if you switch schools, you're learning something different than what they
Yeah.
learned. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
True.
good point. And like even
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
certain people coaching certain levels, like if you have the same 14U coach teaching at 18U stuff,
Yeah.
it's like, man, I don't know what all, but I think each coach has a great like position and to set people up to teach the basics. And for club and every other organization, if you have the same basics the whole way through, then you're not coaching 18U teaching people footwork or how to. It's all
volleyball.
Yeah, it's all been kind of talked about, and then you can keep adding. Like when Jordan and I coached 15U Team New Brunswick this summer, and I've only ever kind of coached 18U and a bit of university in the college league. Man, those kids had no idea what I was saying at first, and I was like, okay, I gotta like break it way down because I'm used to sitting at parties or anywhere talking to you guys, and we're talking about stuff. People are like, man, what are these guys talking about? But it's all stuff that we've discussed in high level. So that was hard for me. Like it was one adjustment because I know Brooks was there too, but he did camps and stuff like that. And then I was like, well, like how the system did it, and talking all this stuff, and the kids are like, and half of them are French, so that didn't help either because your boy's French isn't that good.
That was the biggest part of the problem right there.
Oh, buddy.
No, for sure. What were you going to say on that, Tyler?
I'd say personally, I'd love to coach. Like if I could coach a U13 team, U14 team, that would be it for me. Like I would love that because then I get to develop their basic skills, and your basic skills are the most important, right? And it's like by the time you get U18, and if you're not getting certain things, like if your footwork's not down by U18,
you got a lot of work to do, right? So I think that
and you're spending half the season working on it.
Yeah.
Like
if I had time in my life to do a U13, U14 team, I would absolutely love that. And like a guys team, girls team, it wouldn't matter. It's like in soccer, I coach 5-year-olds sometimes. Yeah. 5 and 6-year-olds who are pretty good, right? Which is crazy to think of at that age. So why can't I take a 13-year-old volleyball team and make them half decent doing stuff, right? So.
Buddy, the 16-year coach would love you. They'd all be coming in with great techniques and everything. They'd be lucky.
But that would help.
I know.
That would help volleyball out as a whole in Nova Scotia. Better younger coaches leads to better.
Jordan, I don't know if you remember this.
The thing is, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to touch one thing. Remember when your dad asked me to help out with that 14U practice?
No, I remember.
It was before me and you coached together in Thai. I was just doing the broadcasting at the Mount. And I went for one practice, and this coach was like, why are you telling me to call the ball? I was like, what do you mean? It's like, it's the most important thing. And he's like, no, it's brought over from other sports. Called me out in front of the kids. I got a little aggressive talking to him. Said the same thing in front of the parents. And I was like, buddy, I'm not going to be back if you're not teaching these kids to at least like call the ball, get there to communicate. They don't know what they're doing, let alone the kid next to them. And then that team was like, that was a solid team. Who was all on that team?
Oh, that was Megan Broom was on that team. Olivia Day was on it.
Yeah.
It was that group that Tim had. So it was like, it was that like core group that ended up being really, really good.
Yeah.
I helped out with that team.
Did you? Yeah, I went to one practice.
No.
I went to one practice. I was like, all right, that's enough for me.
I remember asking you to help coach, and I remember saying to you, because I said to Dad, I was like, I think Robbie'd be a good guy to join Tyler and I. And he's like, I don't know, he didn't have too good of an experience last.
Oh, buddy,
and I remember asking you and saying like, oh, that good, but I'm glad you decided to do it because
who it was? He went to practice after I did too. Yeah.
And now look at you, coaching university and all.
Look at that, buddy. He's not coaching anymore.
That's what happens when you call for the ball.
Yeah.
You know what? I too a big thing with the young age. And I think, Tyler, you're perfect. You're right. It does take – coaches need to take that time and go back and work with the younger kids. And I wouldn't mind doing it either. The one thing that you need, though, is you need to know that after that stuff still gets stressed. Because if you teach it at 12, 13, and then they stop, once 18 you hit, they can lose that stuff. I mean, it's still – some of it will stick with them, but you need just everyone to be on the same page. And I think – remember, Robbie, when we did provincial team, we kind of – we got drills and we got – they gave us kind of like a framework. And then – whatever you want with the people, but this is kind of the goal for this team and for these programs. I think that's kind of something that could be done more. And I honestly think VNS they're really trying to step that up. And same thing, I know when Mark was working for VMB, he said, we're trying to get more, everybody doing more of the same thing. But as a coach,
Volleyball Canada come up with a format of what they want, players to learn at a certain age.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if
exactly.
that's followed
and that's
strongly, but
it's never going to be perfect. But the more you stress it, the more likely to have. The one thing, though, and you guys may disagree with me on this, I think people are too concerned about winning at that age.
100%.
Well, it doesn't.
What do you think?
When's the only time it matters? U18 provincials. And even that doesn't matter that much. But if you win a U14 provincial,
just a stepping
stone. If you win a U16, if you win a U17, doesn't really matter. If you have a team that loses the provincial final, but then every one of their players goes to play AUS volleyball and they win medals in AUS, compared to the team that wins and none of them plays AUS, the team that didn't win provincials technically won because their players are playing.
I've got a fact.
And that's more short-term versus long-term goals, right? One thing we're going to do, I'll let you touch on this first. Sorry.
Okay, sure. Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, just while it's fresh in my mind, I know a team, Courtney Baker and Peyton DeWolf and Michaela and Tori and Hannah Steinberg, and I don't want to offend anyone. Kelsey Bond was on that team. They lost in the provincial finals to True, and they went fifth at national after that. So they, you know what I mean? They done in the end, but they lost Truro, and that was Truro had some good players on it, like Janine played and stuff. But that's a
Maddie.
And if you look at that Truro team. And no offense to that group of athletes, because they were all great, but they even at that was 18U, they won it, but way less of them ended up jumping on. We're hearing about the kids that were on that Bridgewater team that came second, and they were devastated when they lost, but
well, no one wants to lose.
Where their
and that's Pierce, though, too. Short-term provincial championships were over long-term goals and player development, kind of like that year. Oh, but Pierce is the best to do it. He's the most winningest coach in high school. But if you look at some of his players, you got to teach him some of the basics. Yeah. But one thing we're gonna do on this segment is called we haven't named it yet. It's kind of the GOAT segment. Who's one player when you were playing that you thought was the guy?
So playing against, playing with, or growing up watching?
Growing up watching.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
So when I was younger, I think I was in grade 5 or grade 4, I was always watching my brother. I would go to every one of his tournaments. So I seen some pretty legit volleyball players back then. I have a top 3. We have Christiane Rombout, who was.
I knew that was who I was thinking you'd say.
Christiane Rombout was a G.
Yeah.
I have Brian Buck from Bridgewater. He could fly.
Yeah.
Christian Williams from East Preston.
Crazy setter, crazy spin serve.
Those
are the guys that I looked up to. I'm like, these guys are it. They're nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are all big names. For me, one guy that I always admired his game, DR.
Yeah.
DR was a G.
Yeah.
Could hit, had bounce.
No, I had a lot of respect for his too.
Him and then Tyler Greenhouse, because I was 14U practicing with the 18Us because we're all in one gym, and you just see this guy murking balls, bouncing balls, hitting it out of every position. You're like, holy Christ! So yeah, those are probably two of the ones that I was like, holy smoke.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
For me, I try to do it like Tyler, where I have multiple, but I do it in generations of my career. So like sections of my career. So like when I was really young, and I was saying this to Maggie earlier, I was at Nationals, or it was Easterns back then. So Ontario over for club, and Moncton used to host. And the Packmen, this is when they first started. I was in grade 8. There's not many black volleyball players out there. And I see Terrell Bromwell. He's in grade 10. And, I mean, the guy's still killing it to this day. But
see him jump over that car?
Back then, man, like, I swear he could have jumped over the net. That's how high he was getting. And girls were loving him. Like, everyone wanted to watch those guys play, and he was the main attraction. So I'd say he was my first guy where God, yeah. We ended up playing. I ended up having to play against him with you, Tyler, and it was like, all right.
My claim to fame is getting one slowdown, not even a block, just a slowdown, just a touch on one of his hits.
Yeah. Oh, and that's honestly that was a feat for us back then.
Yeah.
But he was the first guy where I was like, I want to be. He really got me like thinking maybe volleyball's for me kind of thing. Then Andrew Acker in high school, I was just scared to play the guy. Like that season where we all like you and I played together, Robbie, and you were on the lake. I think he was the best player in the prop. Like
he jumped.
Did Skyhawks win?
Yeah.
Skyhawks win.
Yeah, they had him and us.
And
Spivey.
No,
I shouldn't say the best, but
Jeff Stewart. That year, Jeff Stewart, because they played Todd in the finals because Todd beat us.
No, they would have played Wade.
No, it wouldn't have been Todd.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Wade,
with the pink jerseys,
He was a big one, but you know what? I got to go back to it. Tyler Veenhouse, he for me, I remember when I went to UMB, so there's kind of like grade 8, then grade 10, like high school person, and then in university, I remember going to the first open gym, like where you have those scrimmages, and he was just humping balls, slamming everybody. And I remember being excited because he was from Nova Scotia. I was like, nice, like another Nova Scotian. And I was blown away by what he could do. I was blown away by what everyone was doing, but he definitely, those would be mine for sure.
So another one for me, Carl Romans. If he was a foot taller, he would have been one of the best volleyball players I've ever seen.
He was like, was it like 5'4"? I don't know how tall he was. Like 5'8".
He was probably 5'8".
But he could fly. He could do it all. And
because he jumped so.
Oh, and was spin serving from like 15U.
And playing on his team though.
You know what? He's a good guy
so much
too.
From him. Yeah, I learned so much
Me
from
too,
him
man.
playing with him that year.
Me too.
And he would like help you out. He would talk to me. Tyler, you should be doing
taught
this
me
stuff.
tons. He wanted young guys do well. Kyle was someone. It was funny because, like he had he was a bit of a hothead. He was competitive and stuff.
I loved it, though.
But at the same time, no one else. Oh yeah, and but also like he also took us young guys under his wing like the most. And some people probably wouldn't have expected that, but that summer where we played NTCC together, like I was pretty overwhelmed and pretty nervous by everything because even though I'm close to your age,
we should have been there.
We were so young. Yeah, like I think I was grade 10, you were 11, and it was a U20 team. But Kyle was someone who like would pull you aside and you know what I mean, just keep you up. Like he was huge for me that summer for sure. So I was overwhelmed. That's actually another thing we should talk about is playing up. You know what I mean? Like that's a topic that's a big discussion thing. Like, is it good? Is it not? When is it good?
Essentially, I only played my age in club, my last year U18. Because even when I played U16, I played U18 with Strickland, right? I played up. I still played against you guys.
Yeah.
But I played both provincials. I played U16 and U18.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was allowed, but I played up in every year of volleyball I possibly can.
Yeah, it was allowed. Truro kind of did the same thing. You'd have your little group of 18U, 16U, but it'd be one group. But the 16Us would go up to the 18U tournaments, and then they obviously the 18Us wouldn't go to the 16Us, but it was just kind of to see that higher level. And then if you do play up, when you go down to your own level, you're like, oh damn, this is.
It's like when I played down, like a lot of those guys, it's like their first time playing volleyball.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I played up, it's all the guys who did play volleyball. I think a lot of them were from like PH at the time, and like PA.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I've been watching volleyball my whole life, so I kind of knew a little bit about it. I wasn't that good then, but I was always playing up because I had these long arms and
high ceiling.
Yeah. Every coach thought it was going to be great, and didn't really go to the way they thought.
Yeah. I think that's one thing. And you know, it's funny. Justin and I talked about this the other day. I did the same. Like when I was in grade 9, I was 16U age, but I also played on Jamie's 18 team, and so did Mike Baxter, so did Joey, and it was all right with people doing 2 teams within. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be able to do that now. You wouldn't be able to get away with it. And I think that's the thing. So then kids have to make that decision. Oh, like they don't like you look at someone. You've got a really good grade 10 kid, for example, like Lacey. When she was grade 10, we wanted her to play with us. She had to choose between the 2. She wasn't able to play 16U and then come play with us too. And back then, I found was a good young player, you'd call them up to practice with you. But now I think people would have a fuss because they're taking reps from everybody else.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
because Stones used to jump out and practice with us.
I hate that you're taking reps away from me. Oh.
Yeah. And that just allows everybody to understand. I think that allows everybody to see like the full buildings of a team where you're a team player where maybe your contributions are strong in practice and then you go in for a couple points, and how a team is kind of defined. And another thing is, if you're playing up, you're seeing this high level stuff, and then you can practice it with your own team where there's less like repercussions and you don't have to worry about making errors, where that you wouldn't be able to go as freely in the higher level because you just want to you don't want to mess up is your mindset. So I think moving up and being able to do both is very beneficial because you don't really realizing how much you're learning or how much you're getting better until you drop back down, and then you're like, oh, this is getting easier. So
it comes and another. Oh, go ahead, Ty.
I didn't really see the benefits of it until like grade 11, when it's like I'm now playing at my age, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of a beast.
Yeah,
like
this is easy.
Yeah, because
same with me.
I've always played with older players, and once everyone was my age, it's like, oh, this is easy until you go play at nationals.
A little easier. Yeah. I one thing I and that would be one thing I think with kids like now is that their playing time is and it, honestly for them they have to decide, and one thing I respect them for is like they have to make the decision, do I play up and probably not play that much, but maybe it'll be better for my development. When you have to choose, it's a lot harder of a decision than when with our opportunity, when we kind of like, do you know what I mean by that? Like I think like when you're playing on 2 teams, you're getting like my role when I did 18U with Jamie, I was nothing to that team. I was just there. I was an extra body. That was huge in my development, but I still had the opportunity to play on my 16U team and be, one of the better players. So now with kids, they're having to decide, like, do I play up and risk not playing as much? And I think that kind of that's something that scares them away a little bit. But
oh, for sure. But that allowed you to understand what it's like to be on a team rather than a bunch of individuals. which I think is one part of the game that's not as strong anymore. Everybody's kind of worried about themselves instead of the whole thing and a whole picture. And if you have someone who's always been a big fish or always been catered to, and then you go post-secondary or you're on a provincial team, now you're sitting on the bench, you aren't used to that. You aren't used to being, I should, like, and mentally, part of the mental game, that's huge, right? Because if you're always being catered to,
I've seen that happen to people.
100 times. And it like, teams are huge, and that affects your culture. And, like, just to have people buying in and able to accept roles that, you know what, that might not have been their role before, but.
Like, I'm not going to throw anyone's name under it, but we have a girl on our team that we coached who could be starting for many other teams, but, like, she just didn't start for us. But her attitude on the bench is the best I've ever seen. Like, she, and the first player that comes out of my mouth when I'm talking to my girlfriend about who impressed you at practice is always the same person. Who impressed you at the tournament? This person. We subbed her in and she did her job perfectly. And, like, to a coach, that player is a player, like, you have a lot of respect for them. Even though they don't think that you do, you really do.
100%.
Being a bench player is the hardest position.
It's hard to be there, too.
Yeah, it's the hardest position. You're sitting on the bench. You only get called on for two reasons. Either the team's doing really bad, and you're coming on to fix everything. Yeah, or the team's blowing them out, and it's like, okay, time to give them a rest. Like, you have to be so mentally strong, and I have a lot of respect for players that can play.
100%.
Yeah, and that's what, you know what, that's such a good point. It's why I think, like, I have to go with you on that, or earlier, like, if you don't get that experience while in while you're a youth player, and then you go to post-secondary level, you go to that next level, and at the next level, like, everybody was a stud. So you need to get used to the fact that there's only going to be room to play and accept your role. Some of those athletes that never have done that before can't do it. So I respect the ones that can, especially at that age.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, that's kind of seeing a bigger picture, and it affects, if you have someone, a couple people that are unhappy, you can see that throughout the team. Yeah. So no, I think that's rolling. I'm not saying be a bench player your whole life, but, like, know the roles. Like, look around, see who's doing what, who's always happy, who's the first person to shake someone's hand, or always smiling. It's tough being on the bench always smiling, but if you have high energy on the bench, man, like, we encourage celebrations. Yeah. Because you may as well. Then what are they going to do? Just blow the whistle, tell you to move back? Like that, it just keeps everybody kind of facing the same direction, even when people might not be 100% happy with their role. They understand it, but
everyone wants to play. Like, everyone wants to play. Your job as a bench player
is to give a coach a headache, being like, I want to put this player on.
Yeah.
Not like, asking about playing time. You should be going so hard in practice that the coach goes, I want to give this person an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is as a bench player. You're waiting for your opportunity.
That's the thing, yeah.
You gotta take it.
You'll get more of a chance if you put that work in when you're in that position. Coaches are going to notice if you're not happy or you're pouting, and we understand you may not love it, but how you respond to that goes a long way.
Yeah. 100%. Have you guys have any stories about you being on the bench?
Oh, buddy. Yeah, man. However you used to.
So what team was this?
This would have been CEC, my grade 12 year, because I transferred to play, and kind of 18U. If I, like, was in a funk or something, he would, like, sub me out for 2 or 3 points. I'd get pissed off, and then he'd sub me back in. Man, it used to work. I remember one game. It was when I was playing up with the 18Us. We were playing against Lakers.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was in finals, but I used to be a serve and sub for the middles, because I just had this float serve that could kind of move around, right? But playing up, like, going to serve. You pray you don't miss your serve, and if you keep serving good, you can stay out longer. And then I get libbed out, subbed out. So anyway, we were playing against Tigers, and I think I went back for like 9 or 10. And I was like, man, this is sweet. And that's how I saw how effective the serve was. And then you see other people who are just back there spinning the ball or float serving, how serving's such an aggressive part. And then there's other times. Oh, buddy,
Mm-hmm.
I broke my nose one time off my knee because I was sitting on the bench talking to Nogler. I think the ball bounced and I ducked, and like just you have to know your role and be happy on the bench. But it is tough. I tell this to every person. I don't know if I would have wanted to coach myself. So I was a little bit of a hothead and kind of understood, but I didn't even understand the mental part of it till after. I was just kind of like, well, right? So, but I see how important it is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon, what about your bench
time on the bench?
Yeah. Well, Tyler, you would have been there with me for some of it. I think, like, for me, I started playing volleyball, not maybe organized on a team, but, because my dad coached, I had been around it for so long. So I kind of had a head start over most guys. So really, from the get-go in my age group, I did quite well, and I would be successful. So it wasn't until provincial team in grade 9, that first summer I played, and they took me on the 18U team, and I was all pumped up because technically I had a bad birthday, so I was 16U, but really I was the grade of a 15U player. I remember being all amped up and honored to make this 18U team. Angus Ruin coach, and then once I got there, like, I saw you guys and Justin, like, you guys all, I think you were all on the same team that year.
Yeah, we were trash.
Oh, we sucked, buddy. We had about 8 setters.
Remember though?
Oh, we had no one. Tyler and Scott Wersey were too.
You were on the floor.
And I wanted to be a setter then.
And then
But you guys played, right? And I remember going in. You guys played. You got on the floor, and but see, that's the thing. I was used to not being on the bench, and then I make this team, and I'm all honored by it, thinking it's a big deal. But then I go to the ECCs or then, and you guys are all playing together on the court, and I'm not. And I remember Angus kept reminding me, he's like, he kept saying, like, don't get discouraged. Like, you're going to be better because of this experience. And I didn't really see where he was coming from. And then the next year, it was the same thing. It's even worse with Tyler. You were with me. And it was like, man, like.
I was left alone. Luckily, Stones came out.
Famous. Post that picture. Actually. You'll have to put the picture in, Tyler, of me sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
The one I'm.
And that's because coaches saw you guys' ceilings, and then they saw my army tent ceiling, and they're like, "Yeah, he's about maxed out. That's as good as he's gonna get."
And I don't know how I played in that tournament, but
so
I
upset with that.
Most points.
Yeah, but you did well. But see, but you know what? You weren't sooking when you were on the bench like I was. That's probably part. You know what I mean? I was all sour.
Just blue, man.
Yeah, I was being a baby. And you know what? The thing is, too, I look back on my career, and I think, because the big thing that hurt me was that my brother was, like, the following season, so not with the year with you guys, but the next year, ACC, 16U, and, like, he was getting all these awards and all this stuff, and I was just like, man, like, I'm here. I am watching the game, practicing at a way higher level, but I'm seeing my brother, and he's having all this success. And at the time, it really discouraged me and stuff. But I think then when I went to UMD and I had to go back and do a role of the bench, I was ready. You know what I mean? Like, I think if I didn't have those experiences in the summer, I think I probably would have quit UMD. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
That was what I needed to prepare me for the high level. So
Yeah.
I'm thankful for it, but I wasn't at the time.
For me, it
Yeah.
would have been grade 7. Grade 7 for Grand Creighton. I was sitting on the bench at tournaments. Like, I didn't get any burn off the bench in grade 7. And I remember walking up to my dad and like, Dad, I'm quitting volleyball.
I'm not playing this sport. I'm going to stick to soccer. This isn't for me. I used to just do the score sheet at every single tournament I'm like, this isn't volleyball. And my dad says to me, he's like, Tyler, I paid for you to play. You better show up with your jersey on every single day. If he wants you to do the score, you better be the best score person in the province. And I kept sitting on the bench, and I've learned many lessons from that. And that's the reason why.
Yeah, you're a hell of a score sheet keeper.
Oh yeah.
Shout out Ricky too. G.
But like because of that, like my coaching, I look for the players who don't see themselves as a starters to work with. Like those are the ones who I attach myself to try to improve, because I was them at one point. And I know if you think about later on in my volleyball career, I wouldn't have been where they were, but starting off, that's where I was.
Yeah. Well, that's about a little bit of a wrap up for episode 1. We're going to touch on a bunch more stuff in later episodes, like how to get recruited if you're a player, like what steps you should take, team culture, the importance will be another one, just like kind of our secrets that we tell the teams we coach about mentality and stuff. And yeah, we're just going to have some guests on after we get it rolling. Yeah, once again, this is our first time ever doing a podcast, so take it with some grains of salt. Oh, it's great. Yeah. And like this is just us shooting the shit, talking, whether we're here having a couple drinks or we're out doing whatever. It's half the time it's just us kind of.
This is every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it really is. So that's why we're like, man, well, we're all quarantined. Tyler and I live together. Jordan's in Fredericton right now, so we're like, we might as well start a podcast. And yeah. So.
We'll be talking about dating volleyball coaches.
Yeah, the struggles the girlfriends have to go through.
Yeah, so we have 2 girlfriends.
Who
Maggie and Kennedy want to get into the podcast a little bit. So.
Yeah, because it's a lot. It's a lot of time.
We might have to Pat Brooks up for that one.
Pat's she'd be the goat of it and how to manage it, because a lot of my relationships have ended because of coaching, because you got to choose, and some people aren't happy with the time, the commitment, but
it seems like mine only gets stronger because of it. The more she gets involved.
Nice. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, and then
stay safe.